That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Bramer. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. Shout out to Humans Music. Thanks for bringing us in today. I always appreciate those guys. No goodbyes, just sneak to check out their music on all the major music platforms, humansmusic.com, I believe, as well. If you're looking for ways to quit drinking, you can go to thatsoberguy.com. Check out our courses, mastermind groups, one-on-one coaching options. You can also book a 30-minute strategy session with me, and we can talk about your goals and answer any questions that you might have. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast as well. All the links from today's show will be in the show notes, so they're very easy for you to find. Behind the scenes, how the alcohol industry targets men and normalizes drinking. Now today I wanted to talk about 3 different points related to the topic with the goal to shed some light and some insight into why this is happening, and not only why this is happening, but to help build a foundation to support your why. Like, what is your why? And also support my why as to why we don't drink, why we don't participate in this culture, in this industry that glamorizes and promotes a substance in alcohol that literally destroys people's lives and robs them of their future, of their ambition, of who God really intended them to be. I know for many years, I felt like a prisoner in my own body, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. I felt trapped. I didn't know how to get out of this endless cycle. It was like Groundhog Day every day. And the substances continued to get worse over the years. It started out as fun. Then it got a little more intense. And then it got to a point where it wasn't fun. And then it got to a point where I couldn't stop, which led me to, getting some assistance and some help and continuing down a new path, alcohol-free 11 plus years ago. So first of all, I wanted to kind of start with this before we get into the alcohol industry and the targeting aspect that it impedes on or imposes, I think was the word I was looking for, onto men in particularly. I really believe that alcohol is a tool, okay, that is used by the corporate elite system to control men and literally steal their souls, steal their ambition to be good, God-fearing men. I 100% believe that. They don't call them spirits for nothing, right? If you've heard that before, you see it on the sign. I remember there was a bar in Vacaville, and I think it was, I forgot which bar it was, but I remember the sign, and the sign said, something, the name of the bar. Actually, I remember, I just don't want to say it right now, but just out of respect for the person who actually was named after the bar, and that person had passed away, whatever, completely different story, not really relevant to this, but the sign said spirits on it, right? Spirits. And you've heard them call it that many times, spirits. And they don't say that because they rob your spirit. And they turn your spirit, alcohol in particularly, into something that is not your authentic self. That's not you. That's not the spirit that God gave you. When you're addicted to alcohol, you lose ambition. You stunt your growth mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. You lose interest in things that might normally be interesting to you. You lose focus on who you really are. You tend to struggle with normal life things, that would normally not be maybe such a big deal. But when the alcohol is in play, it tends to intensify things, especially if it's stress. You lose focus on who God sees you as, which I mentioned already, but that's one of the most important things. Like how do I see myself versus how God sees me? That's two totally different things. That's the world and that's the spirit. Two separate things. And it's complex, it's complicated, it's confusing. I get it. But that's why this whole thing is a process. It's about growth. It's about going through the process as well. So many things we struggle with though, when alcohol is playing that normal role in our lives. We struggle sometimes as fathers, as husbands, as in our jobs, in our businesses. Maybe we have this entrepreneurial spirit, but we keep dreaming and we keep talking about it, but we never do anything about it. I was in that boat for a long time. And for me, it was with music. I was in a bunch of different bands and made a couple albums. This was like right at the beginning too, when everything went digital. I was still burning CDs and stuff back then, in the early 2000s. And just really had this aspiration to be in the music business. Like some of my friends that I saw, were having success, but I had no concept, number one, of the business element of it and the entrepreneurial side of it. And I also was wasting away because I just thought it was about partying and drinking and doing drugs and just being crazy. And then come to find out, 11 years later, I cut the drugs and the alcohol out and I'm still crazy. So imagine that, right? But to sum that up, habitual drinking makes you disconnected. Okay, check this, from the very God that created you. And I wanted to read something here just to kind of prove my point on this. Who has trouble? Who has sorrow? Who is fighting? Who is complaining? Who is hurt without reason? Who has eyes that have become red? Those who stay a long time over wine. Those who go to taste mixed wine. Do not look at wine when it is red, when it shines in the cup, when it is smooth and going down. In the end, it bites like a snake. It stings like the bite of a snake with poison. Your eyes will see strange things. Your mind will say wrong things. And you will be like the one who lies down in the center of the sea, or like the one who lies above a ship's sail. They hit me, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not know. When will I wake up? I will look for another drink. That's Proverbs 23, 29 through 35. And you go look that up yourself and read that and interpret it how you wish. But I think that's very interesting. And I think it gives us some biblical context of the effects that alcohol can have on us, in the physical sense, in the emotional sense, and definitely in the spiritual sense. It's a spiritual roadblock, 100%. And I'll say it again, like I've said it many, many times before. I've still, till this day, yet to hear anybody say, my habitual drinking habits have really improved my life. All right, so let's get to the points. Let me see here. Take a quick little drink here. What am I drinking on today? I got the Black Rifle Coffee Company. Good stuff. Always support those guys. Black Rifle Coffee Company. This is an espresso with cream and a little more sugar than I'd like, but still good. They were selling cases of these over at the Costco, so I picked one up and trying to replace the pre-workout style energy drinks, that kind of stuff after the kidney stone. I still haven't talked about the kidney stone yet, have I? Gosh, I got to do that. I'm going to put that on the list for an upcoming episode in October, possibly. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll give you the rundown and how to avoid kidney stone, and especially as you get older, and it is not fun. Okay, so the 3 different points related to the topic of today's podcast, behind the scenes, how the alcohol industry targets men and normalizes drinking. Number 1, marketing strategies targeting men. Number 2, cultural normalization of drinking. And number 3, the psychological and societal impacts of alcohol. So this first one, marketing strategies targeting men. you notice this probably just like I do, that alcohol advertisements are very carefully and strategically crafted to appeal to men through a few different key elements. You have images and aesthetics. So, for instance, you'll see some ads and they'll feature like outdoors style stuff or rugged, masculine, sports, camaraderie. And these images promote this aspirational lifestyle where drinking, right, is synonymous and goes hand in hand with strength, adventure, camaraderie with your boys. And I should add, I think it would be, as much as I despise alcohol in itself and the effects that it has, the long-term effects that it has on so many of my friends and family that I've seen, and then just people in general, men in general, I should add, I don't think it would be fair to say that there isn't some sort of camaraderie that happens when responsible drinkers sit around and have a glass of alcohol together, a scotch, let's say. That's the first thing that comes to mind, or one beer. Okay. And that happens occasionally. Okay. Now, why can't we replace that with a coffee or something else? I mean, hey, that is something I think that could be argued back and forth for a long time. So why does it have to be alcohol? Well, it does. And I do think there are plenty of responsible drinkers who do that occasionally. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the habitual drinking anytime, anything we do, any place we go, anywhere. Eventually, it doesn't even become about the event or the adventure or the sport. It becomes about the drinking. I experienced this firsthand going to A's games and Raider games back in the day, and different events, specifically sporting events where, for instance, an A's game, I wouldn't even go in until the 6th, 7th, sometimes 8th inning because we were partying in the parking lot. So it wasn't about the A's game necessarily. It was an excuse to go drink. And that whole adventure aspect and the camaraderie and your boys getting together, and that kind of leads us into this next one, the themes of brotherhood. Many of these campaigns that highlight social experiences and bonding among men, they portray drinking as essential to friendships and the ability to have those relationships and find closeness with other dudes, your homies, your brothers. And it reinforces the idea that alcohol helps solidify these connections, when really at the end of the day, I couldn't tell you old drunk conversations I had because I didn't remember them and they were meaningless the next day. Now in the moment, man, you sound smart. You sound passionate. You sound interesting. At least you think you do. But in the long run, the following day when you don't remember what you said or what you did or what that conversation was about, that's not enhancing social connections. That is not enhancing a friendship. That's not growing a relationship. That is a drinking buddy at the end of the day. If you can't do what you just did and have that same conversation and show emotion and show your authentic self, which are not your authentic self when you're drinking anyway, so that kind of doesn't matter regardless. But if you can't do that in the same light, then there's probably an issue there. And that means that the alcohol is not serving a good purpose. Also, lifestyle aspirations. Alcohol brands create a lifestyle around their products that appeal to masculinity, showcasing luxury, success, sophistication. The positioning of these types of ads suggests that consuming their product may elevate your status, make you more professional, make you more known, make you more respected, which at the end of the day, I will tell you firsthand, when I meet somebody, and trust me, I'm the last one who goes around yelling out to everyone when I meet them that I don't drink. There's plenty of times when I've been out and about at different events or whatever, and they offer me a drink, I just say, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate the offer. 9 times out of 10, they don't ask even a question after that anyway. They just go, okay, they don't care. I'm not the one out there going, excuse me, let me tell you about your drinking habits. I don't drink. I've been sober for 11 years and I don't do that. I don't want to do that. It's not my place to do that. I would never do that. Now, if somebody asks me and we have a conversation and it comes up, of course, I'm going to share how I live my life. I'll share a little bit about my story, because the goal here in my goal and mission on this planet is to obviously lead my family well, lead my wife, lead my kids, leave a legacy that is embedded in God and a foundation of serving God and serving people and doing the best I can to bring people to Jesus and to help hopefully as many men as possible kick alcohol and become the fathers, leaders, husbands, and entrepreneurs, business owners, just men, good men, God-fearing men that they can possibly be. That is my goal. Okay, so if I get opportunities, yes, I'm definitely gonna speak into that. But most of the time, I'm hanging out. I'm not gonna go into that with somebody, and nobody cares at the end of the day. They don't. And so this idea that you have to be drinking in an environment, whether it's a party or it's a wedding or it's a funeral or it's just Sunday dinner or it's after work hanging with the boys in the garage, like it's not real. You don't have to do that. Although we've been taught we have to do that. You don't have to go to a game and get wasted. You don't have to, this is a new one. You don't have to go to the movies and drink. Have you noticed that movie theaters, they often serve alcohol now? Why is that? Like, could we at least just have the movies without the alcohol in there? That would have been great. But I see it now often. Oh, they got alcohol. You literally, you can't go watch a movie for 2 hours without drinking. Like, come on. All right. Humor and, how do you say that word? Irreverence. Yes. Humor and irreverence. Ads frequently use humor or playful scenarios. And we're going to give some examples of these two coming up. And I'm sure you could think of your own examples. There's plenty of alcohol related commercials, specifically beer ones, that are funny sometimes. I remember a lot of them in the 90s. I'm going to age myself so much right now, but how about Spuds McKenzie? Does anybody remember Spuds McKenzie? Those ads were hilarious back in the day. They were so 80s, 90s, but they were funny. They were humor. They were playful. They were scenarios that would resonate with a male audience and contribute this positive association with the beer or the product that they were promoting, while emphasizing this kind of carefree, like, I'm having a great time, everything's cool kind of attitude, right? And you need the alcohol to do that. I mean, you don't. So let me just say that you definitely do not. Does it enhance your not give a F's? Like, sure, it does. And that's usually what got me in trouble back in the day, especially after a while. Okay. And then the last one here, sports associations. And man, this is a big one. By aligning with sports and male-dominated activities, these advertisements tap into cultural interest, embedding the product in contexts that celebrate masculinity once again. And we see that a lot. Masculinity. We hear it a lot. Masculinity. You're having a scotch and it means you're a man. You're having a beer after, whatever event, and you're doing it in, at the game or in your tailgating or whatever. And that makes you masculine and manly, and we're all hanging out. And man, that's what I was going to say earlier. Actually, I got off when I was talking about when I was going out and people offer me a drink and I just say no. I can't tell you how many times, because it said in there about being respected, right? They create this culture that, like, you're respected if you have a whiskey on the rocks and whatever. And like, that's just not true. It's just not true. I can tell you right now, I get so much more respect when I tell somebody after a conversation, like, yeah, I actually don't drink. I haven't drank in 11 years. And they go, damn, wow. I mean, every time, it's good for you. Or I've never once had anyone say, you're a bitch. I've never had anybody say that. And I would probably laugh in their face if they did, because like that just goes to show me that they're probably going through their own stuff, right? I've never had anyone say that. Like it's always like, wow. And then it leads to more conversation. Sometimes it's, well, I only drink on the weekends. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I drink a little bit here and there, or man, how did you do that? How do you do that? It leads to that thing. And so the respect thing, you will elevate your respect tenfold when you stop drinking for a long period of time and get your shit together in a sense. And I'm just saying, I'm not talking about your status or your social media status or your finance, or all that stuff can play in particularly the finance and getting your family organized and all that stuff. But I'm just saying in general, your spirit, your mind, your health, your perspective on the day, the lethargic, what do you call that word? Letharginism? I think I just made up a word, but what I'm getting at is, you don't feel lethargic anymore. That's what I was trying to say. You don't feel like you don't have any ambition anymore. Like I generally wake up like excited to see what the day has, what God has in store for the day. Who can I help? What do I get to work on today? What game do I get to go enjoy and watch my kids play? Do I get to hang out with my wife? Are we having date night? Am I creating something right now? Even creating outlines for podcasts and doing research and reading and writing and crafting, wordsmithing things together like that, and it's in service usually of somebody else most of the time. And it's great, and all that stems from the moment that I decided to make that decision to cut alcohol out of my life. It was not serving me well. And I know it doesn't serve most dudes well who habitually drink. So let's get into a couple popular ads, or actually the role, we already kind of went over some of the ads, but the role of sports, music, and entertainment endorsements in promoting alcohol. So we talked about sports endorsements. Alcohol brands often sponsor major sporting events and teams so it creates this direct correlation between their products and their consumer, right? So ads featuring athletes, they'll emphasize, competition and, strength and some of the things I've already talked about, camaraderie. They're portraying drinking as a way to celebrate victories and enhance those experiences, which doesn't really make sense because let's say I just won a championship, or I just won like a race, or, I just succeeded in something. I've done really well, probably physically, mentally, all that. Why do I need to go put poison in my body afterwards? That's what you're doing, because it's a way to celebrate. And then I get intoxicated and I let loose. And like, why do we need that? Why is it promoted? Well, it's promoted because those are the emotional ties that they can tug on our hearts with to get us to use their product. Because if you really stop and think about it, that's not a positive way to celebrate at the end of the day. Maybe in the moment it feels like it, but if you're doing that all the time, it's not productive, and it becomes an issue over months and years of doing it, because it becomes a habit. And now you're spending money. It all comes back to the money. You can look at anything and just say, follow the money, and you can figure out, where that path leads to. Also, music partnerships. This is a big one. This is a huge one because I really experienced this one firsthand. Collaborations with popular musicians help brands connect with younger audiences. Music festivals and concerts provide a great backdrop where alcohol is often portrayed as part of that lifestyle, reinforcing the themes of community, enjoying the times, having a great time, the images of fans celebrating together. There's a sense of belonging there. And I experienced that firsthand when I was in my teenage years, and I was in bands, and I really wanted to be in the music business, and I loved music. I started playing the guitar. I started going to punk rock shows all over the Bay Area and up and down the state of California. We would go to shows all the time. And what went along with those shows, even before I was 21, okay, because I could still get things, alcohol, whatever else, was alcohol and drugs. And those went hand in hand because I was coerced well, I don't want to say coerced, but I mean, I guess that could be, you could say coerced, I guess, in some sense. I was, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess programmed in a sense, led to believe. I think you understand what I'm getting at here. I was conditioned. That's the word I was looking for. Conditioned as a young child. And some of this comes from watching, family members who partook in alcohol and other substances on a regular basis. So I saw that as a young kid. And then as I got into my teens, even though swearing I wasn't going to do that, when I got in the music, community, I thought that's just what you did. Man, if you're going to be in the music business and you're going to be in media and you're going to, even entertainment, which is our next one, that's what you need to do. You need to be crazy. You need to be intoxicated. And that's what's going to get you success, which is completely false. It's a completely false narrative that is fed to us, and it absolutely destroys people's life. And it messed my life up. It robbed me of a lot of years in my 20s because I just didn't know any better. I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do. Even though it's funny, deep down, I knew it was wrong. I knew my life was not on the path I wanted it to be. I knew I wasn't following God. I knew that there was something more for my life, but I didn't know how to escape it. The only escapism that I knew was the substance, because I could escape from reality, if that makes sense. But entertainment influence as well, from celebrities, film and television. This is a huge one too. If you just look at athletes and definitely in the music business, definitely entertainment, these people are used as tools and they get paid a lot of money to promote products to sell to us. And they get all the stuff for free. They do whatever they want because they have tons of money. I would never want to be one of these people because they are contracted to something higher up in that industry that controls them and controls their lives. And I wouldn't want any part of that. It sounds completely miserable in some sense, even though they looks glamorous. They have all the things. They do this, they do that. I would take it as far as saying that those people who are used as the tools to promote and sell, different, from drugs to alcohol to even just regular products, a lot of them have handlers, and a lot of them are in, you think they're in one business, entertainment, movie stars, musicians, but they're actually controlled by organizations who, or corporations, should I say too, that aren't using them for their best interest either, but they're just using them to influence us. And once you start seeing through that, like this, I think the Super Bowl is a great example of that. And don't get me wrong, man, I love some football. I don't want to sit up here and sound like, I'm the sports in particular. I love baseball. Like, I love football. I'm starting to watch quite a bit more college football these days, just because I feel like the vibe is a little different than the NFL. The NFL is just so corporate, and there's so many behind the scenes stuff. Sometimes I wonder, with all the flag calls and the penalties, if it's even real. I think you could make plenty of arguments for that. It's definitely interesting. But I do love sports. I'm a sports guy. I'm a music guy. I love all this stuff, but I think we have to get to a point where we see through kind of the mirage of advertising, of like, what are they trying to get us to do? Like, that is always a good thing to ask yourself. And when we put that in terms of drinking, it's pretty easy to see, how it's promoted all the time. There's some case studies and partnerships between alcohol brands and male and events, or maybe even some celebrities too, like Budweiser and the NFL. I mean, Budweiser has been a staple during NFL broadcasts, utilizing commercial slots to engage football fans. The campaign often feature themes of friendship, celebration, positioning the beer as the go-to choice for game day gatherings. And I can even remember the Clydesdales. That's one that comes to mind too. The Clydesdales and Budweiser. That was just such a huge ad, and they made it. Who doesn't love a big ass horse that's or 10 big ass horses? Just it's kind of rough and kind of badass, right? And then you associate it with their brand, right? So it boosts the visibility. When we're watching football, we're drinking Bud, or whatever whoever still drinks that crap. But Heineken and Formula One, another one. Crown Royal and country music, they have a big partnership. Country music festivals, and you'll hear a lot of country celebrities promoting Crown Royal. I've seen it before. I've seen ads. And their campaign often features maybe some storytelling that enhances that brand's loyalty to you, so you relate with them. And you have to remember, like I said, everything is emotional. Everything is emotional. Media, government, corporations, they tug on emotion. If you really start to look at what they do, the media headlines, stories, commercials, advertising, everything is emotional. They do not want us to think logically. If we think with emotion, that's when we spend money. That's when we make irrational decisions that are geared towards supporting things that might not be in our best interest. We have to think logical. And how can you think logical if you're intoxicated all the time? You can't. That's the goal. How about the cultural normalization of drinking? And I talked a little bit about this, in being a kid and seeing this growing up. We'll take a quick drink here. Oh man, my neck is a little bit stiff. But the normalization, the normalcy bias that you're just supposed to drink, it's so funny. I can't believe I'm going to share this right now, but I was thinking about this the other day. You have those random stories come up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I haven't thought about that in 25 years. Well, this is one of those. Okay. And it just came up the other day. And I remember I was probably, maybe 16, 17. And I had been, these were the days of like, Dr. Dre and Snoop. And I mean, this whole like gangster kind of 90s, it was rockers versus rappers. And man, it was crazy back in the day. It's hilarious, actually, now that I think about it. But that whole music industry was geared towards making kids who actually grew up in the hood, and then even suburban kids who grew up in towns like in Vacaville, like I did, think that what they were listening to was real life, and the drinking and the girls and the drugs and the kind of that hard, I'm a gangster mentality, even though I was the furthest thing from a gangster, and most kids were at that time, but we were emulating, we were trying to be. And I remember I was watching movies like New Jack City and Menace to Society and Boys in the Hood, and man, great movies. And I'm not saying that those didn't depict some authentic things that were happening in those areas back in the day, because they were. But for a kid like me who was just watching this stuff and trying to figure out who he was and was coming from a jacked up home, was just out all the time. I never wanted to be at home. I was watching this stuff and I was starting to try to emulate it a little bit, and I wanted to be cool. And I had that I don't give a F attitude, And so, okay, I'm getting off point, but here's the story real quick. So I remember 16, 17 years old, and we're partying. There's a group of us. I don't remember all who it was. And we had somebody who was going to buy us alcohol. And I remember the car pulled up and they're like, hey, what do you want? And I was trying to be so cool. I was like, yeah, give me 2 Mickey's deuces. Like, who in the hell are you? Like, who? And I remember the girl is a girl at the time. She looked at me and she just kind of started laughing because she was older than me. And she's like, who is this dumb, like young idiot who thinks he's cool? 2 Mickeys. I think it was Mickey's Ice too, because I used to love Mickey's Ice back in the day. Let me get 2 Mickey's Ice deuces. Like, I didn't know. I was going to go sit at a park and drink them and smoke cigarettes. And like, but that's what I thought was cool. And all of that came from being influenced by music, by TV, by advertising, and then also peers, like peer pressure, who were getting the same stuff dealt to them. So like these types of things create this kind of pervasive cultural narrative that presents drinking as an essential, enjoyable, like cool part of life. Like it makes you cool. It normalizes alcohol consumption. And it really does normalize it in this like kind of everyday setting, especially for someone who is trying to fit in as a young kid. And as we get older, it just continues to progress. And I've seen it, in myself, and I've heard about it, and I've seen it in so many other people too. But I even wrote down a couple movies, right? And some of these movies, like, okay, first couple ones, The Hangover, right? Hilarious movie, but man, like Wild Bachelor Party, reinforcing the idea that we've already talked about so much, that this behavior and just like, let's party and just get hammered to the max and just lose our minds and black out and not know what we did. And it's totally cool to do that. It's a bachelor party. That's what you do. You spend a bunch of money, maybe grab a couple hookers, and like you're going to shows and, clubs, and like, man, it's so wrong in so many ways. But yet at the same time, you kind of hear me laughing. It's also kind of funny in a way. And it's also kind of sad in a way. It has a lot of different emotions, tugging on emotions. It's emotional. Wolf of Wall Street, another great film, crazy movie, depicts the excesses of Wall Street brokers, including rampant drinking, drug use, sex, and partying. And this was based, obviously, if you haven't seen the movie, on a guy named Jordan Belfort, I think was his name. And man, there's actually this is totally off topic. I just remember this. There's a documentary I watched. Man, I can't remember the dude's name now, but he was a dude. He was either from China or Japan, or maybe it was Korea. I think he was Korean. And he created this whole like fake like industry and business that he was like the richest dude. And he funded a lot of that movie for the Wolf of Wall Street. And it was all fake. It was all just a big scam, basically. And he was like doing business with the Korean government and the United States government. It was nuts, man. I wish I could remember the guy's name, but side point, in any case, that movie, crazy movie, right? Based on a real dude's life. The rampant drug use in certain industries, and particularly Wall Street and finance and those high performing industries like that. There is a lot of alcohol and a lot of drug use in those. Meet a lot of meetings with high profile people, executives. There's a lot of money flying around. So there's a lot of drinking that's going around, and man, it doesn't have to be like that, but it is. And then the other movie was Superbad, I love that movie. It's hilarious, but it literally focuses on a high school party and this kind of journey to get alcohol. And it highlights kind of the teenage drinking culture. When I watched it at the time, I didn't think anything of it. It was a hilarious movie. I never put it in context of a 43-year-old with a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, and somebody who struggled with alcohol myself. I didn't think about it that. But when I look back on it now, from the perspective where I sit today, a little more experience, a little more time to mess things up and figure out how to not mess things up, but still messing things up sometimes, and just in process, right? I have a definite different perspective on that today, on that movie, even though McLovin is hilarious movie, but subconsciously, what does it do? It promotes, it highlights, it engages young people to think that behavior is okay, that it's acceptable, that it's normal. It's not at all. So man, there's lots, and I'm not going to get into the other ones because I listed, because we're already going long here, but some of the other TV shows, Mad Men, Cheers, Friends. I love Cheers, by the way, too. It's a great show. It really is. And the one thing, I never knew about Cheers growing up until my wife and I started watching Cheers probably like 5 years ago. All of a sudden, I remember watching it or like having it on like at my grandma and grandpa's house. They would have it on like in the 80s. And so, but I never really knew the context of what it was about other than it was in a bar. I did know that in Boston. And I never really grasped the concept though that Sam, the head character, the owner of the bar eventually was in recovery and he was sober. I didn't know that till we started really watching it about 5 years ago. And I love that element to it. And just a great show. But once again, definitely highlighting, and normalizing drinking, every day for Norm, for, what's his name? The mailman. I forgot his name now, but, great show. How about social media though, too? Influencer posts, people on cruises, vacations, doing their thing. They got their drinks up, who knows one of those people? I'm not trying to be a dick here, but we all know one of those people. You go to their social media page and every picture is them holding up some sort of drink. They're never not with a drink in their hand. And, it's kind of sad, I guess, at one point when you really think about it. But there are those influencers out there who do just that. They influence. That's what they do. And so whether they're backed by different, brands, different companies, different corporations, at the end of the day, I'll go back to this. What is their intention and what are they doing and what are they promoting, and just being conscious of what you're looking at. Oh, I wanted to give a couple examples too. We're going to get into this last one. We're almost done here. I wanted to get into this last, or before we get into the last one, sorry, my phone just went off and I had like 5 things going through my brain at one time. There's a couple alternative examples of shows who are the opposite. And I just wanted to highlight those because there is alternate options. Louder Milk is one of them. If you haven't seen that, I've watched a few episodes of it. It's pretty funny. He's in recovery and he's kind of like just bitter, and I haven't watched every episode, so I don't know the progression of the show, if it gets any better or whatever, but there's definitely some funny parts. And then another show Jess introduced me to called Mother with Anna Faris, and she lives with her mom. They're both in recovery, and there's a lot of 12-step, content in there and different things that they go through and different past stuff. So, it's good to see that there's definitely alternatives out there and people are bringing this to the light. Even the non-alcoholic beer industry is big. I think I was just talking about this recently. I went to the grocery store just recently and I happened to go down the beer aisle and there was so much the section of non-alcoholic stuff was massive. It was bigger than I had ever saw. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. And then it started pissing me off because I'm like, these fools, they don't care. They're just trying to get, they're trying to carve out a spot wherever they can make the most money. Because at the end of the day, it's about profit, right? What's your profit margin? What does that look like? And if lots of people are quitting, well, then we need to cater to them for a non-alcoholic beer. And I don't have anything against non-alcoholic beer. I drink them occasionally. It's not my favorite. But every once in a while, if we're out or something, or if we're at a friend's house or something, someone will have one, or I'll bring some sometimes. We had a debate party recently at our friend Dave and Stacy's house, and I brought some. They had an Oktoberfest athletic brew that I brought over there, and I had one, and it was cool. It was okay. It was good. Whatever. Not a bit. I'm not really trying to down 6 non-alcoholic beers. What's the point? I never drank because I like the taste, But so it's just funny how that whole industry is changing that part of it too. Okay, so and I'm going to kind of skip over a couple of these things because we've already kind of talked about them, but the kind of third part of this, the psychological and societal impacts, drinking habits, like the impact of perception on men's drinking habits and then their self-image. Perceptions of alcohol significantly impact men's drinking habits and their self-image. which can shape both the identity as well as your behavior in what you're doing on your day-to-day, how you're acting. Are you your authentic self? Do you have mood swings? Like, a lot of that stuff can kind of play into some of the stuff. And then your confidence level. Like, what is your confidence? I've talked to so many dudes whose confidence is so low in everything they do, personal, business, everything, because of the habitual drinking. The self-image thing I think is huge. And this portrayal of alcohol in the media, in advertising, it creates a strong link between drinking and self-worth, which kind of sounds funny even when I hear myself say that. But I know it's true because I can remember when I first was considering quitting, one of the things that I had to ask myself was, well, who am I? How would I do that? I'm going to lose my whole self, because I actually didn't know my authentic self. I just knew drinking self. And so to get rid of that and cut it out of my life meant a whole life change. And so my self-worth was just so low. My confidence was so low. And I internalized the idea that drinking was enhancing my social status. It was making me cooler. It was making me crazier. I was more relevant as a musician because I was partying and going hard and being crazy. And, when I was going hard and being crazy, I felt I had that liquor courage, they'll call it. Confidence was high, but as soon as that wore off, I was the lowest of the low. And my confidence level was low. My self-esteem was low. My ambition was low. Like, everything was low. It wasn't a fun place to be in. And then how about just the consequences of alcohol too? Just you start getting in trouble. You can, from DUIs, ruin relationships, fights, your work issues, not showing up. All that stuff, like, gosh, it's just such a, okay. So back to the point, let me just end with this and we'll tie this up here. Nobody ever said my habitual drinking habits have really improved my life. I'm just gonna kind of sum it up with that. After everything we've talked about, we didn't even get into the physical health, the mental health, and the social relationships. All of those things play huge parts in that too. Like I was in the worst shape of my life through my 20s and my early 30s. I was skinny fat. I ate like dog crap. I didn't exercise. And if I did, there were little stints where I would try to go and I would last like 2 weeks and then I would stop, cause I'd be back to drinking or smoking or whatever. My mental health was all over the place. I was, not very responsible, and, I wasn't steady, wasn't reliable. My work and my productivity at work was suffering really, really bad. It definitely affected my performance at work. And I almost got fired because of it a couple of times. And I eventually started missing work, and man, it was just not a good spot to be in. So let's kind of tie this up. I hope this gave you some insight today and maybe helps build some foundation into, like, why do we continue to poison our minds, our bodies, and our spirits with alcohol? Why? What is the benefit? Just ask yourself that. What is your why? Why do you do it? And then if you want to quit, why do you want to quit? Do you want to start a business? Do you want to improve your business? Do you want to lead your family better? Do you want to be a better friend? Like, all those things are very relevant things in most men's life. And we have ambition, we have goals. And for so many of us, at one time or another, alcohol has just held us down. It's like a ball and chain. And we don't know how to fix it, how to get rid of it. I love helping men do that. I love helping men set goals, have accountability, find what they're passionate about, what their purpose is. How are they going to elevate their business? How are they going to start their business? How are they going to be a better father? What are they going to do to improve their relationship in their marriage, to be a better leader in their family, in their community, all that kind of stuff. And you can find all those resources at thatsoberguy.com. You can contact me there. You can book a strategy session with me. I'd love to chat with you and hear what your goals are. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope something spoke to you today. And man, if you're watching, sports this weekend, if you're at a concert, when you start to become mindful of this stuff, start to build that foundation, as you consider your own drinking habits, or if you ever want to go back to it and maybe you've already quit and you have that thought sometimes, well, I could probably just have a couple. I mean, that's a normal thought to have. We've all had it before. It doesn't mean we need to act on it, but those little implants from media, from movies, from TV shows, from sports, especially when we're early on, they do have an effect because why? They pull at our emotions, their emotional experiences and thoughts, and they're very particular in how they plant those. So just be aware of them. Look out for them this weekend. And I'd love to hear from you too. If that's something that you found interesting, or you saw something that, made you think of this podcast, you can hit us up on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. Or you can send us an email, sobriety@thatsoberguy.com, as well as go to thatsoberguy.com and find all of our resources there. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope something spoke to you. Peace, love, and respect. Keep your blood clean.